I knew my custody hearing was over the second my mother stood up to testify against me. Not my ex, not his lawyer, my own mother. She looked straight at the judge and calmly said I was unstable, secretive, and dangerous to my son. No hesitation, no emotion, just certainty. And the worst part wasn't that she was lying. It was that everyone believed her. The judge, the lawyers, even my ex smiled like he'd already won. But what none of them knew was that in less than 10 minutes, someone would walk through those courtroom doors and make every word she said collapse. I sat there listening to my mother describe me like I was a stranger she'd studied from a distance, like she was reading notes instead of talking about the daughter she raised. Her voice calm, confident, almost helpful. And that was what made it worse. Not anger, not hatred, just certainty. The kind that convinces people before they even question it. And I could feel the room slowly tilting in her direction, as if truth were a physical thing sliding across the floor toward her shoes. The judge watched without expression. My ex watched with a satisfaction he'd tried to hide but couldn't. And my son kept glancing between us, like he was trying to solve a math problem no one had taught him how to do. I didn't interrupt, didn't react, didn't defend myself, because curiosity had settled over me instead of panic. A strange, cold curiosity about how far she would go, how many versions of me she had invented, how many stories she had rehearsed before walking into this room. She talked about my supposed instability, about the job she claimed I couldn't hold, about the nights she said I disappeared, and each sentence sounded practiced, polished, almost memorized, like she had repeated it until it felt true even to her. And I realized something then that I hadn't understood in all the years I'd known her. People don't always lie because they want to hurt you. Sometimes they lie because they need their version of you to exist, because it protects the story they tell themselves about who you are. And I wondered when exactly she had decided I was the villain in hers. Was it when I moved out? When I stopped asking permission? When I stopped explaining my life? Or was it happening slowly all along while I was too busy living to notice? The lawyer nodded along with every word she said, like she was handing him gold instead of sentences, and I almost smiled because he thought this was going well for him. He thought I was cornered, exposed, finished. He thought silence meant weakness. Most people do. That's the funny thing about silence. It makes others talk more than they should. And the more my mother spoke, the more details she added. Details I knew for a fact she couldn't possibly know, which meant she wasn't recalling anymore, she was creating. And that's when my curiosity sharpened into focus, because lies that grow usually collapse. They just need time. So I stayed still, let her keep going, let her build her tower higher and higher while everyone watched, while my son watched, while the judge watched, and while they all wondered why I wasn't fighting back. What they didn't understand yet was that I wasn't waiting for permission to speak. I was waiting for the exact moment it would matter. And if you want to see what happens when that moment finally comes, stay with me, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The moment finally came when the judge turned her eyes toward me and asked if I wanted to respond, and the room shifted again, quieter this time, like even the air leaned closer to hear whether I would break or beg or try to explain myself the way people expect a cornered woman to do. My ex straightened in his chair, my mother folded her hands with the calm satisfaction of someone who believes the outcome is already decided, and my son held his breath without realizing it. I could see it in the small rise of his shoulders. And that was when I stood, slow, steady, not dramatic, not angry, just certain. Because curiosity had done its work, and now I understood exactly what they were counting on. They were counting on me to defend, to scramble, to deny, to look desperate, because desperation looks like guilt to people who want a reason not to listen. So instead of arguing, I simply said I'd like to call someone to clarify a few things. And the lawyer frowned immediately, confusion flickering across his face like a light switching on in a dark room. He objected out of habit more than strategy, said he hadn't been notified, said this wasn't standard, said this wasn't procedure. And I almost admired the way his confidence wavered slightly when the judge asked who he intended to call, because confidence is loud until uncertainty walks in. And I told her the name, calm, clear, unmistakable, and the effect was instant. Not dramatic like in movies, just a subtle ripple, a shift of posture, a few exchanged glances, the kind of reaction people have when something doesn't fit the version of reality they've already decided on. My mother's lips parted first, my ex's second, the lawyer's last, and for the first time since this hearing began, no one looked certain anymore. Which was interesting because nothing had actually happened yet. No testimony, no evidence, just a name. That's all it took for doubt to sneak into a room that had been so sure of itself minutes ago. And that's when I realized how fragile assumptions really are, how they stand tall right up until the moment someone touches them. The courtroom doors opened behind me, slow, quiet, almost polite, and footsteps followed, measured ones, the kind that don't rush because they never have to. And I didn't turn right away. I let them hear it first, let them feel it, let curiosity spread the same way it had spread through me earlier, because timing matters more than volume. And when I finally stepped aside and the man entered fully into view, the silence that settled wasn't the bored silence from before, it was alert, electric, the kind that tightens every spine in the room. My mother's lips parted, but no sound came out. My ex's confidence drained so quickly it was almost visible, and the lawyer's papers suddenly seemed very important to stare at. And I thought, not with anger, but with clarity, now they're listening. Now they're wondering what actually happened here. And if you're starting to wonder what they just realized too, make sure you like and subscribe and stay with me because what happened next changed everything. The realization didn't explode, it unfolded, slow and undeniable, like daylight filling a room 1 inch at a time. Because the man who stepped forward didn't need introduction. His presence carried recognition with it, the kind people feel before they understand why. And I watched their faces instead of him, because reactions tell you more truth than words ever can. My mother's certainty cracked first. I saw it in the tight pull of her jaw, the tiny shake of her head like she was rejecting what her eyes were telling her. My ex stared the way people stare at a locked door after they realize they left the key inside. And the lawyer who spoke so confidently minutes earlier suddenly looked like he wished he had spoken less. The judge leaned slightly forward, attentive now, not bored, not neutral, attentive. And that was the shift that mattered. Not his arrival, not his title, just that shift. Because attention is power in a room where decisions are made. He stated calmly who I was, what I did, how long I had done it. Nothing exaggerated, nothing dramatic, just facts, plain and clean, and impossible to twist. And the strange thing was, I didn't feel triumphant hearing it. I felt still, steady, almost detached, like I was watching someone else's story unfold from the back row, because the truth didn't need me to decorate it. It could stand on its own. The silence afterwards wasn't shock anymore, it was recalculation. Every person in that room quietly rearranging their opinion of me, measuring their past assumptions against what they now knew. And I realized something important in that moment. Respect that appears suddenly was never respect. It was correction. They weren't admiring me, they were correcting themselves. And that distinction mattered more than winning ever could. The judge reviewed the documents, asked a few brief questions, listened to the answers, and then delivered the decision in the same calm tone she had used all morning. But this time, the calm carried weight. Custody granted, terms set, evaluation noted, final, simple, done. Just like that. No dramatic speech, no gavel flam, just a conclusion. My son ran to me the second it was over and wrapped his arms around me with the fierce grip only children have, like he was anchoring himself to something solid. And when he asked quietly why I never told him everything about my work, I told him the truth, that I wanted him to know me as his mother first, not as a title, not as a reputation, just me. And he nodded like that answer made perfect sense, because to him it did. Children understand priorities adults complicate. My mother approached after, hesitant, smaller somehow, apology already forming before she spoke, but I didn't feel anger, just distance, because some lessons don't come from revenge, they come from clarity. And the clearest lesson I learned that day was this: you don't prove your worth by shouting it, you prove it by standing still while the truth arrives on its own. And if this moment surprised you, stay with me for what comes next, and make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the next story.